The current objective was quite simple: break into and hack 4 Forerunner beacons across the map. Throughout the game I wanted to pace myself and do some side content to make the experience longer, and I was interested in collecting the ring data. I saw one nearby on the map, and as I approached it, a specific view hit me. Something about this image felt almost like nostalgic and iconic. And despite being in the same biome as the rest of the map, something stood out about the design of this area, especially those hanging hexagonal pillars. I jumped down and entered an enclosed pathway surrounded by trees. It wasn't a crazy backdrop or set piece like the other Halos. It wasn't even close to the coolest views you could find in this game, but some type of feeling was radiating out of this area. After taking out the banished squad, I discovered and listened to an audio log next to the crashed Pelican. I finally approached the massive ancient ring, something the community nor Master Chief really know much about yet. A complete mystery. The ancient code exploded. The sound design was so satisfying. This whole time, I had this unexplainable feeling, this weird vibe I got from this location that was not really important in the grand scheme of the game, a location literally on the edge of the map. But I think that's why I had this sort of feeling. I guess I could describe the feeling as a sense of nostalgia, escapism, and or immersion. Like everything was okay and I can just breathe in this virtual world without any care. I have a hypothesis for what happened here. I believe it was the culmination of Infinite's amazing art direction along with the familiar set of level design. This is Jezebel Plaza in the game Batman Arkham City. When I was a little kid who just played Arkham Asylum a year before, I was entering a new game world that absolutely blew my mind. I vaguely remember wandering on top of the glass in the dilapidated plaza, not really understanding what the main objective was, but I didn't really care, as I was too busy taking in the atmosphere and exploring. The mysteriousness of the world was compounded by my lack of understanding of games at the time. I was probably 9 or 10 when I played Arkham City for the first time, and to put it lightly, I was just not as intelligent, obviously. I knew so little about this new world. I didn't know how big the map was. I didn't even know where I was exactly. It was like playing the game with tunnel vision, but this wasn't exactly a bad thing at all. I remember theorizing actually that maybe Poison Ivy was somewhere in this area because the glass reminded me of the botanical gardens in Arkham Asylum. Anyways, I came across this odd canister guarded by penguin thugs near the edge of the map, and I can only imagine that the feeling I got from that view was similar to the one I got in Infinite. The structure of this area in Arkham City reminds me a lot of this area in Infinite. Both are at the edge of the map with a low point leading to an important but mysterious piece of side content guarded by enemies. It was at this point that I started to respect Infinite a lot more, because despite being this far in, some of the repetitive content left a bad taste in my mouth. I knew that if a game was able to garner such a feeling out of me, a feeling so rare, then it has to be somewhat special. Halo Infinite absolutely is special, but unfortunately, it's far from perfect. What I look for in a video game isn't so clear-cut all the time. My impressions aren't calculated precisely by simplified features and elements like gameplay and graphics. I absolutely take those into account when trying to give a review of a game, but it doesn't necessarily translate to why I enjoy a game. The way in which the elements are combined form the enjoyment. Video games aren't just a collection of multiple sensory and technical elements, they're a synthesis of those elements to achieve some type of goal. The enjoyment comes from the time spent in a state of immersion and complete wonder for me personally, a feeling I can't really give a name to. These are moments I can look back on, and while not experiencing those exact feelings again, I can remember what they were and can appreciate how the game created the conditions for those feelings to exist. A great game is an experience, not just quote-unquote fun, but a combination of emotions and dispositions that cannot be immediately explained. I love Zeta Halo, and I like the open world aspect of Infinite. Before the game released, I was very worried about the gameplay loop, and that it would be like a Ubisoft game, like Far Cry or something. And while some of that is true in my opinion, it also did what I wanted. It had a lot of fun exploration. One of the most memorable parts of the world for me was near the beginning of the game, where this mountain is cut in half by a huge ravine. There's really no reason for any player simply concerned with the main story to ever set foot near this location, but I really wanted to explore. I asked myself if I could actually go all the way around the mountain, and so I made my way around the right side, occasionally battling some enemies and freeing a squad on the other side. There wasn't a huge standout moment here, but the fact that I could just go anywhere over here impressed me. It's such an unnecessary part of the world, but they took the time to create it. A criticism often thrown at Infinite is its lack of diversity in biome and atmosphere, and I absolutely agree with this. In fact, there's an ending section of the game map that I think should be converted into a snow biome, and more islands should be opened up for exploration. There definitely isn't enough diversity in this game. Same can be said for enemy variation. But in my defense of the Pacific Northwest biome and overall map design, they did an amazing job with this limited set of assets. While most of the map is the same type of tree with the same hexagonal pillars, what impressed me was the amount of variations there are in the level design itself. There is a huge difference between the first island, where the pillars are much more rare and the landscape is primarily a plain valley section, and this island, which has more pillars making massive cliffs. This other section of the map uses the pillars to make more rectangular cliffs, which contrasts with the naturalism and randomness of the rest of the map. This is a very small number of examples, obviously, because I would have to go into very nuanced level design, but I think it gets the point across. Every part of the map offers a different spatial atmosphere, even if the biome is the same. I also really enjoy some of the sub-biomes in this game, like the mossy, swampy area, or the gravel hills, and the different tree types near the second tower. My favorite aspect of the design of Zeta Halo is the hexagonal pillars, because in the context of the environmental design, they act sort of like rocks almost. Obviously, these designs are inspired by the basalt pillars found in places like Iceland. Despite the role they play in the landscape as a sort of natural aspect of the world, they are completely artificial. This structure that was created basically in an alien factory and was intended to be way below the ring's surface is now just another natural structure in the environment. That juxtaposition is just beautiful to me, and I think the game would feel entirely different without them. I can't forget to talk about the Forerunner architecture in this game. The Forerunner environments in this game might as well be the most well designed in the entire series. There's honestly not much to really say, it just speaks for itself. I definitely think there was too much copy and pasted rooms, but that makes lore sense, and the old games did it a lot too. I absolutely love the gold bronze addition to the color palette of the Forerunner architecture, and it was a great move to slowly introduce that as the game progresses. The further into the story you are, the more extravagant the Forerunner rooms become. I really don't need to say how amazing these Forerunner judge statues are, everyone else already has. I really respect 343 for their huge jump from Halo 5 to Halo Infinite when it comes to the art style. The Forerunner structures in Halo 5 looked really plastic rather than metallic. The Tron-esque design in Halo 4 really bugged me as well. The mysteriousness and ancient feeling that came from these structures in previous games was basically lost in the newer games, but has absolutely been returned better than ever. I appreciate the throwbacks to Halo 2 like the slide vents, mobile platforms, and the classic Sentinel vents. Even stuff from Halo CE and Halo 3 had an influence on Infinite's design. Beyond that, I found myself enjoying the amazing views you can find in the world. One time I climbed a high peak and discovered an ancient Forerunner structure surrounded by beautiful flowers. This location had no side content, it was just there for immersion. There are so many places like that, and I appreciate it. Despite these positives, there are still a number of issues with the map I have. The first one being the amount of area shown on the top right region of the map that is completely unexplorable. My hope is that this area would be opened up and fully explorable in an update or DLC, because it's really annoying when open world games do this. I was fully expecting to explore that area near the end of the game. When I never could, it just really disappointed me. The next issue is the graphics. While I think the textures in this game are some of the best I've ever seen, the overall presentation isn't very impressive. The backgrounds and landscapes and the general look is very flat and just unimpressive compared to games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Arkham Knight, which were on last gen consoles. Now, I did play on Xbox One, but after looking at the footage of Series X gameplay, it seems that the only main difference is the speed at which textures load and like the quality of the textures. It's more high quality, but the lighting is basically the same. Now, the Forerunner levels are the exact opposite. The reflections and lighting in them is just incredible and perfect to me, but that open world needs some upgrades in my opinion. This is the best time to solidify that this game has an excellent art style that perfectly encapsulate what was great about the old games. Despite the Covenant not being in this game for the first time, you can tell the Banished belong to the same universe. Also, red is my favorite color, so I'm a little bit biased. I had a huge issue with the art style of Halo 5, specifically where it felt very inconsistent and very unlike Halo. The armor took on an almost Destiny look for some reason. They added way too much neon lighting, unnecessary details, and curvy shapes that did not match Halo at all for me. The armor in Halo 5 was just so unappealing. Here in Infinite, I can say that Mark 7 is probably my favorite iteration of the Spartan armor so far. The music is also excellent in Infinite, and I especially love the free roam type of music that gives so much character to the world. I wouldn't say this is the best soundtrack we've gotten so far. Halo Infinite feels more subtle and calm than almost every other Halo game, and its soundtrack reflects that, for better or worse. There's definitely a lot of detail in the music that deserves coverage, but I just don't want to focus on that in this particular video. This section is named after what people called the Covenant Dance, a rhythm that defined Bungie's Halo games. I remember playing Halo 3 and Reach as a kid with my brother, but never really took in the stories or gameplay. A few years ago, I got the Master Chief Collection and decided that I needed to play what people called one of the best franchises in gaming. I started with Halo CE, of course, and unfortunately got too annoyed by the random nature of the game, and so I quit halfway through. Instead of giving up on Halo though, I decided just to skip to Halo 2 Anniversary. Not only were the cutscenes just absolutely jaw-dropping, better than most films I've actually seen, but the story of the new Arbiter connected with me so much. I was immersed into this extremely massive world of fleshed out factions with their own crazy politics within an incredible art style improved drastically by iteration. I was immediately sucked in, and I was so glad that this was my first experience with Halo 2. In Karo Station, I was finally introduced to the gameplay. Dual wielding immediately impressed me, and I've always wanted it to return. At the end of this level, Chief has to track down a bomb on the station, and when you get into the room, this song begins to play. This was my first true experience with the Covenant Dance, where nothing matters except taking out these enemies. The music immersed me into a desperate fight where I had to use whatever was at my disposal, switching weapons, throwing grenades, dual wielding whatever I could, and hopping around the room. That was the moment that I knew I loved Halo. Are Halo Infinite's gameplay moments as iconic as that? I wouldn't say they are yet. Does Halo Infinite have the best gameplay in the entire series? Yes, in my opinion. Where do I even start with the gameplay? I can tell that Halo Infinite's gameplay took years of iteration and development because of how polished it is. Complicated where needed and simple where needed. I absolutely love the fusion coils in this game, and I was just playing Reach the other day and wished I could pick them up in that game and throw them because it's just so fun. I see the fusion coils in the same light as something like dual wielding, where it just adds another sort of branch of the gameplay, more variety and options to the base gameplay. I know the legacy dance, the combat rhythm is different for everyone, but for me it was always about keeping momentum going, Doom style. When I entered the room, I wanted that shit to look like a gameplay trailer or something. The grab hook is another option that I absolutely love in both linear and non-linear sections of the game. As an avid Titanfall 2 fan, I absolutely approve of this. I could analyze every aspect of the gameplay loop, but I won't because you could literally talk for hours about every little mechanic in the game that is made dynamic with the amazing AI. Usually I play the normal difficulty on Halo because it best offers that Doom-like gameplay rather than, ducking behind cover constantly. After beating Halo 3 ODST again recently, I noticed how much better the Infinite AI is on normal. In ODST, half of the enemies just stand out in the open and barely move, just shooting at you, waiting for you to kick them in the face. Everything about Infinite's combat design is very detailed, and that's huge coming from Halo 5. Like, I was looking at Halo 5 gameplay like a week ago, and I was just baffled that that was the game they made before this. Not to mention the animations and characterizations of the enemies are all just completely amazing. They all feel unique. The grunts in this game are by far the best in the series to me. What used to be a sort of boring enemy type most of the time are now a treat simply because of their dynamic dialogue and behavior. You'll never know if a grunt is going to pussy out or believe he can single-handedly take you out. There are also a ton of bosses in this game, and all of the campaign bosses are great. I only wish they were a bit more unique compared to one another, and had more screen time and characterization. Chaklock looks incredible. The armor in this game is just beautiful, and the bronze makes me melt, man. Unfortunately, even though this guy is cool, this is all we see of him, and the mechanics of his boss fight are more so just a precursor to the best boss fight in the game, in my opinion.
Meet your end. Say goodbye.
Then you put in the high value targets and I almost get confused which boss is which. I will soon get to the primary problem with Halo Infinite, its over-reliance on recursion. Also notice how I'm not talking about the Forerunner gameplay elements because those are pretty much perfect or at least matches the old games, and I don't really need to talk about that. Now, like I said at the beginning of the video, gameplay is best in synthesis with the rest of the technical elements contributing. In my Halo 2 example, what really got me was the combination of the level design, music, gameplay, and story objective. Even the word gameplay is an oversimplification because it too is a very complex combination of visual, audible, and narrative elements too. Halo Infinite achieves this idea. It synthesizes all of those elements into an immersive experience that will definitely entrance you at certain points in the story. The story of Halo Infinite is good, the connection between the three main characters is great, and I see their evolution throughout. The way the story shifted from Halo 5 was very clean and as simple as it needed to be. Cortana was handled perfectly in my opinion. The whispers within the Forerunner locations constantly reminding Chief what he and Cortana have gone through was just an amazing experience. The villains, especially the Harbinger, added a great deal of mystery that still lingers. Escharum was a good villain and definitely reminds me of older Halos. I actually admired the single shot camera for how it was used creatively to pass time and subtly switch to other locations. I can definitely see how it limited storytelling sometimes. These cutscenes come nowhere near the masterpiece that is Halo 2 Anniversary, but I thought they were okay. I've realized that Infinite is not the most action-packed Halo game, not even close, and I'm not sure if it's really trying to be. I found myself really enjoying the calm moments in between the big story missions, exploring the open world, and just taking in the atmosphere. Infinite is definitely an immersive experience in the vein of Halo 3 ODST. I definitely respect that direction, but it could have been done even better in my opinion. Halo Infinite's broad narrative doesn't evolve enough. The only reason Infinite isn't super short is because the game is filled with complications that do develop its characters but don't evolve the grand narrative too much, and I really do see what they were doing here, subtly developing its main characters during objectives that aren't really that complicated. Furthermore, Escharum is a cool villain, but 90% of the time he acts like a Far Cry villain who mocks you behind a virtual projection the entire game until you finally see him for a few minutes near the end. The lack of evolution, twists and turns, surprises just kinda bugged me, and that's something I sort of expect in a Halo game. I don't mind the story trying to be simple, but I think it was just a little too simple. Now, I was watching a streamer play Infinite on Twitch a while ago, and while I agree with their overall rating of the game, some of the criticisms felt wrongly placed to me. A big one being how much less impactful the Warthog run was to the House of Reckoning in Infinite compared to other games. That is if it was really a Warthog run to the developers. He's definitely not wrong about it being less impactful, but I don't believe every game needs to iterate on the same set pieces. I'm absolutely fine with a Halo game being different, with a different bundle of set pieces and story modes. The problem comes when those changes aren't good. Halo 3 ODST changed a lot in its formula. It's open world with non-linear storytelling, the characters are less powerful, you play as multiple different characters, the game is quite calm, there is this new vision mode, etc. ODST didn't bring back everything from Halo 3. It wasn't building upon every single aspect from that game. It was evolving it, and evolving it further into Halo Reach. I'm perfectly fine with that, with Halo games having their own feel and types of set pieces. Halo Infinite is trying to embrace the roots of Halo, and it absolutely succeeds in that department, but it's also very different in the same vein as ODST. So my primary criticism towards Halo Infinite is not that there isn't a Scarab fight or that there isn't a Warthog run that rivals Halo 3's, it's simply that Infinite is way too repetitive and relies too heavily on recursive story beats, encounters, and objectives. The amount of times I've seen the same animation of the weapon walking onto a terminal, Master Chief asking if there's a problem, Escharum taunting me through a projection, discovering a dead Spartan for equipment, the pilot being annoyed at Chief's hope, powering doors with power seeds, exploring very similar linear environments, etc, etc. It's just a little tiring after a while. There's nothing wrong with recursion. It can be great for building suspense and showing the evolution of the characters. But this game does it way too much, where I'm questioning if it was primarily done out of development limitations rather than story implications. The repetitive nature of the game makes it feel a little cheap at times, even though I know it's absolutely not. The absolute worst offender to me is the side content in this game. The audio logs are fine, but the high value targets might have cool lore, but it's barely reflected in their actual gameplay encounters, where all they are reskins of already existing enemies. I didn't realize how much I would hate the banished outposts in this game, the most repetitive objective in the entire game. I'm so tired of the same animation for this switch. I'm tired of blowing up the same silos. I'm tired of punching the same terminal. I just hate these camps, especially in the early game. In the early game, I wanted to get most of the experience, so I did a good chunk of the side content, which was probably a mistake, because the camps are practically the same at that point. Fortunately, down the line, there are some variety to these objectives, like where you have to destroy a camp's comms tower, or my favorite one, where you have to stop an excavation operation of ancient Forerunner artifacts. I enjoyed this one a lot because I had a unique asset for a banished ship carrying Forerunner rings and these unique projections. It was a breath of fresh air, but every single camp should be unique in this way, not just a few of them. The last massive section of the open world is the height of this game for me because it really embraced the calm before the storm moments and offered the most variety in the environments and encounters. Although the story objective was hacking 4 of the same Forerunner beacons, I didn't mind it that much. It very much reminded me of something like Combat Evolved. All in all, too little happens in this story. It feels like there are missing missions and set pieces, and the game was also way too repetitive. Simply adding in alternate animations to different switches and releasing the weapon would have been nice. It would have gone a long way actually. That being said, the story content we got, while repetitive, is still well done in of itself, and is why I still love the game. It's not that this game is bad by any means, it's just that it had so much potential and only utilized some of that potential. This is a game that is very solid, it's very competent, it's very good, but I feel like it could have easily been better if they just did a little bit more with it. I'm really hoping more of that can be explored in the DLC, and I think the best thing that we could get for a first DLCs is opening new sections of the map and offering new linear missions that could fit in with the campaign and improve it. If the campaign can be improved with DLCs and updates, that's what I would like them to do. In conclusion, Halo Infinite is a special game. It's exactly what it needed to be for the Halo franchise, a return to elegance. Unfortunately, Infinite is not perfect, nor near perfect in my regard. Infinite could have been much more, but I have fully accepted what we have gotten, and I very much appreciate that Infinite is a great game, coming directly from my least favorite game in the entire franchise. I enjoyed the hell out of Infinite for all my criticisms, and I adore the experience it offered me. The story I gave in the beginning of the video is truly a rare event, and Infinite gave that to me. I have the utmost respect for 343 Industries. The dev team is extremely talented, and while Infinite isn't the best looking game on the market with the most content for $60, I believe that great design philosophy is much more valuable, and that's what these developers have. 343 Industries has made the incredible feat of reviving a lost franchise that previously divided its fanbase greatly. That's one of the hardest jobs to have in entertainment, and 343 should be very, very proud of that. Obviously, this video is very specifically looking at the campaign of Halo Infinite. The multiplayer and the sort of missing features like Forge and co-op is definitely a huge thing. Also, theater is a huge thing that a lot of people care about, and I would have loved to have played this campaign co-op. It would have been the coolest co-op experience in all of the Halos because of this open world. And it's very disappointing that a lot of games, a lot of AAA games that have huge budgets, released unfinished, and it's honestly, it's unacceptable. And I don't blame the developers. It's clearly not their fault. Usually it's the way that the industry works now, and I'm not gonna give Halo a pass for that, and I think that should have been here at launch, especially with the delay, and it's unacceptable. But 343 is a very transparent company. The devs are very transparent, and they are already working to fix a lot of things with the multiplayer and campaign. But this is me just looking at the narrative components, what we got from the campaign, and this was my subjective view of it. So I would like to hear what you guys think in the comments below.